What's going on, guys? Going to be our summary of markets week 79. We're going to get into SPY, Qs, gold, oil, USD, JPY, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then we're going to get into the stock and option watch list right after that. So let's get started with SPY. So SPY had a pretty nice week last week. Broke out pretty strong after having a couple of inside days, which were also dojis. So we had that like 3 doji setup, and then we popped out of it towards the end of the week on Thursday and Friday. Our breakout target on SPY is around 449, so we're still watching that area for a little breakout target. 449 to 452 might be a little resistance around like 447 early next week, but you're still looking for that 450 zone. So as long as we hold on to, I'd say like 444, this is going to be a pretty bullish week. Lose 444, you might pull back down to 440, but any pullback down to 438 will still be bullish. Okay. Moving on to Qs. Qs looks really strong here. You got a nice little flat top coming in. We could grab a little Fibonacci level from here to here if we wanted to find like our breakout zone. So if we do break above like 371, we're looking for 377 to 379. Maybe a little resistance around 375, but you are still watching that 377 area as your main target. Any pullback down to the OTS trail around 364 would still be bullish. You could pull back down to like 358 and really still be bullish around there. Short term be pretty bloody, but long term you still be bullish. Anything above the 50-day obviously would be bullish long term. So watch for that. Below the OTS trail, you could go down to like 358, but I'd be pretty bullish for next week as long as you break above like 371. So one thing to watch out for is, I don't know if you guys were keeping up with what's going on in the Middle East, but the Taliban have basically taken over Afghanistan again. I know you guys are thinking like, why does that matter for the markets? The biggest reason why that matters is it increases the fear, right? So fear comes back into the market. We also have a lot of the defense stocks that are heavily weighted in these ETFs that we trade. So the defense stocks, we're going to talk about that later in the video. They might start getting a lot more volume. So keep an eye on that. We're going to talk about that, like I said, later. So let's finish up with the summary. Then we'll talk about those defense stocks. But we really want to watch how the market reacts in the next 2 hours when ES opens. So keep an eye on ES. It's going to be after this video is over, so I can't cover it now. So make sure you watch that. You guys, if you don't have data, you can still look at ES on TradingView, and you'll have 15-minute delayed. So just go ahead and check around like 6:30. Look at how ES opens with that news. We don't know just yet how it's going to react bullishly or bearishly, so we do want to wait probably a day or two to really see how the market reacts. All right, let's take a look at gold. So gold had a nasty pullback last week. You pulled back down into this range. You pulled back down into like the bulldog, which we were looking at. The 50% of the range and the bottom of the range was tested. And then you popped back above the 50. Nice little doji there. And then you ripped higher. So we're back above the pivot, back above the range. For right now, this is very bullish. Okay, so as long as we can hold above like 1770, break above 1800, we could see a retrace back into around that 1850 to 1860 area. A lot of resistance moving forward on the OTS trail and the 50-day moving average. But if we can get above that, then you could start talking about reclaiming that 1900. For now, bullish short term, still very bearish long term below that 50. If we stay below the 50, you could go back down to that 1700 area. Oil also saw a little bit of a pullback, but if this Middle East news keeps ramping up, we could see a bounce on oil back to like 75. So make sure you watch oil here. You want to get back above the 50-day above 72, and then we could see a bounce into 75 pretty quickly. Break above 77. We still have that final target around 83. It's still pretty strong short term until we lose that pivot. If it loses the pivot around 66, then we're talking about 63 to 60. Going back to USD JPY, the dollar got a little weak last week. Dixie was pulling back, USD JPY pulling back, losing its short-term momentum. You are back below the 50-day, so a little weak there. Unless it can get back above like 110.60, you probably are going to pull back here, back down to like 109 or 108. So a little weakness on the dollar. Moving on to Bitcoin. Bitcoin saw a nice little breakout last week, but you are putting in a weak high here. A little bit of a bear div coming in. So maybe pull back and retest this trend. But for now, this does look pretty strong, pretty bullish. I told you guys to watch for the 50-day to break and the OTS to turn green. Both of those things happened way back in July, and we've been trending up ever since. So if you guys took that as your indicator to get back in Bitcoin, then you are very bullish and you are very happy. So you are green about 34 to around 40%, depending on where you entered. So beautiful trade on that. So for right now, it's bullish, but you could pull back to retest this range. That would be extremely bullish if you did miss out on this breakout. If it pulled back to retest this range around 40,000, 41,000 and held that retest, that would be extremely bullish. And then you could bounce off that into like 55,000 to 60,000. Okay, so keep an eye on that. That would be very helpful. Let's go back. Oops, didn't mean to click that. Let's go back to this here. I want to show you guys what the volume profile is looking like on Bitcoin. So when was last week? It was the 8th. So we want to take this day here all the way to now. And this gives us last week's volume composite, okay? Our profile composite. So what we can do is we can take the value area low, the value area high, and then we can go and take like any prominent levels. So we have like this node right here, which would be clear resistance. But then we also have like a volume gap like right here, which we did test like right at the open of this week. Okay, so these look like all the major levels. We also have a little node down here. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so moving forward on Bitcoin, these are the major levels you want to watch. If we start breaking above the value area high, above 46.7, then we would look to get that volume gap around 47.3, and then we have a lot of resistance until we break above 47.8. Okay, so get above 47,800, there's really no resistance above that, so you could easily break out into that 48 to 50,000 zone. For now, if you stay between 45,000 and 47, this is just finding balance, and it's going to range very heavily. Okay, if we break below 44,800, there's a big support around 44. If you break that, there's really nothing supporting you below that. Okay. So if we break below that, we could have an 80% rule down to these levels here. So you have the value area high, then the value area low. So break below that node, a little bit of support at 43.3. Break below that, we could see 40,700. Okay, so keep an eye on those levels for this coming week. All right, moving on to Ethereum, we want to do the same thing, right? So we're going to grab the value area low, value area high. We want to take any nodes above the tail or below the tail. Got a little bit of a node right here, nothing too strong. And then we have a big node down here. There are no prominent gaps except for the gap right here, so we can mark that out. It's currently being tested already. Okay, there we go. So this is last week's composite for Ethereum. So what we want to watch out for is a fill-in of this gap, which we currently are doing. Anything between these levels here is just finding balance, so it's just going to range between these levels. If you break above this level here, you have clear resistance around 3,300. Break above 3,300, there's really nothing stopping you from breaking out above that, okay? If we break below 3,060, you do have a little bit of support here. You can see there's a lot of volume down here, but no prominent nodes. You got a little bit of a node right here, so we could mark that out if we wanted to. Right around here. So you do have a little bit of support right there around 3,000. Break below that, support around 2930. Break below that, there's really nothing stopping you from going lower. Okay, so then we could look for an 80% rule down to these levels here. Break below 2888, you could get down to 2733. Okay, So watch those levels for the coming week of Ethereum, and you could get some very nice trades off those levels. All right, that was the summary of markets. Let's move on to the options watch list. Make sure if you guys like this video, make sure to click that like button, hit subscribe if you guys are new to my channel. We do stream 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you guys are new, make sure to come back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern. All right, let's get started with the watch list. All right, so first on the watch list is Penn. We talked about this last week, I believe, breaking out of this falling wedge, but you're still resisting the 50-day and the 200-day. So we need to get above the 50-day and the 200. Then this would start to look very good above 80. So we're still watching this one, but we're not looking for a trade just yet. All right, moving on to NEO. NEO's still putting in like an ugly inverse head and shoulders, pulling back to the 200-day. If it can hold the 200-day here around 39.75, this could give you a nice little dip buy here. Not too strong on the bearish momentum, so this is looking very weak, but it doesn't really have that much negative momentum just yet. So keep an eye on it around the 200, around 39, and then around 37 as well. Break above 46, that will definitely be very bullish. All right, moving on to Snapchat. It did hit our first target last week around 80.50. Second target would be around 83. Right now it's pulling back to the breakout point, so support could be found around 72 to 70. Also major support around 68. So watch for those levels to be tested. If they're not tested, watch for that target around 83. Zoom did hit our first target last week. We had that target around 395 get hit, but it could not break above that downtrend. So it's looking very weak right now. The Momo is pinching bearishly. You do have earnings coming up, so I probably would not look for a trade on this until earnings, but I still like this this accumulation pattern. So keep an eye on it if it breaks above like 390 or if it has a nasty pullback to like 318. I'm not looking for a trade just yet, but if it does test those levels, we'll keep an eye on it. All right, 3M, you tried to break this trend here, couldn't do it, so a little weakness. You did have earnings, and it did kind of react bullishly to earnings, so it doesn't look too bad here if it can hold above this trend, but you do need to see some price action above like 202, and then you're looking for 207. Shopify bouncing off the 50-day here could be very bullish. You are getting very close to losing this trend on the Momo, so it has to bounce very strong this week or it's going to get bloody. We want to see this hold above like 1550, then look for 1600, maybe break out into 1740. Moving on to Square. Square hit all of our local targets. We were looking for like 260, 280. All those targets were smashed. You were looking for all-time high around 290. That got hit too. Now we're pulling back. So look for a pullback, maybe the OTS trail around 260, maybe the 50-day around 245. But I would definitely look for a pullback. The momentum has been lost, and you have already broken out 3 times here. So this little 3 drives pattern, you don't really want to buy a short pullback. You want to buy more of a deep pullback, maybe the OTS trail or the 50-day. Moving on to Airbnb, very strong day on Friday, which was earnings. I think their earnings might have been on Thursday, who knows, but very strong breakout there. If it can hold above 153, look for around the range low right here, around like 166. Get above that, look for the pivot around 180. Okay, you just have to hold above this range here, and it looks really good. Snow continuing to break out. We've been calling this one out for the past few weeks now. Broke above our target around 274. Then we were looking for 290 to 300. 290 was hit. Now look for 300. You hit 300. Then we're looking for around 323, which is that previous high. Okay. For now, the momentum is very strong. Getting a little weak here. Might have a small bear div. But you do have earnings coming up, so I would watch out for that. I probably wouldn't trade this before earnings. Watch out for earnings. If it does pull back on earnings, maybe 273 to 270 would be a decent pullback to buy. If it has good earnings, probably smash into 300, 320. DoorDash, another one that had earnings, very strong reaction too. Came all the way down to the OTS trail, gave you a buy the dip signal, which was literally the bottom, and then we bounced heavily. So if it can hold above like 197, look for 200, 205 as the short-term like day trade target. Break above that, probably get around 214 to 215, this previous high here. COMCAST, we've been watching for the past few weeks. It got a little choppy there, but it looks like it wants to break away from this distribution here. You've been in a massive ascending triangle on the weekly, so we are finally breaking out of that. If it can get above this 60 mark, look for like 62 to 63. It sounds very close, but that's actually a pretty big move for COMCAST, so keep an eye on that target. LULU is another one we're watching. Pulled back to retest the pivot, just barely missed it by a few pennies, but it looks really bullish. Nice little hammer there on Friday. If you can break above like 410, 411, look for 415, 424. Break above that area, 452 to 462. This one is just non-stop going higher. We're actually forking off our previous trend. So as long as you can hold this new trend here, this is just going to keep smashing our targets. All right, here are the war stocks that I was talking about in the summary of markets. So with the Taliban news, they've completely taken over Afghanistan at this point. So if we start seeing some call flow on like Honeywell, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, or this DFIN ETF, I would definitely keep an eye on these. I hate trading war stocks, to be honest. I think they're more of a long-term kind of boomer play. But when big headlines like we're seeing with Afghanistan and the Taliban right now start to come out, you really want to start watching these war stocks on the call scanners to see if any big boys are buying into these. Okay, so keep an eye on these 4 names. I don't really have any key patterns right now that I'm watching. I'm mainly just watching the call flow. So keep an eye on these. If we see some call flow, I'll call them out in Discord. But these are the biggest names in war that you want to be watching. I think right now the best one, it was already on our list, was Honeywell. If Honeywell can break above like 235, this thing can start rocketing. It's been distributing for the past few months, like 6 months almost. So if it can break above this range high, this thing could go pretty quickly. It's kind of like a ugly cup and handle. So very bullish pattern here. Watch for a break of that 235 area. The other ones, they don't really look too good. We have to kind of wait to see if they get call flow. All right, quickly, I'm going to talk about our shippers. The shipping companies that we've been watching are doing very, very well. We're up like 15% on one of them. We're up like 5 to 10% on another one, then another 5% on another one. So the shipping portfolio is doing very well. So keep an eye on these. The BDI index is starting to break out, and it looks like they're having a bullish reaction so far. One thing to note, they are coming into earnings. Maddox already had earnings. Zim has earnings coming up pretty soon, and NMM had earnings as well. So these already had earnings. The only one that I'm being a little worried about is Zim, because it is coming into earnings. The last reaction was decently bullish, but then it ranged for a while. So we got to watch out for that one. I'm still holding PayPal in my long-term portfolio. It's holding onto the pivot here. If it pulls back to like 265, I'll probably add some shares around there. But we need this to get back with a 50-day very soon. Chewy actually smashed into our first target around like 96, 97. I want to see 100 on this, though. It's getting a little toppy. If it starts to pull back early next week, I'll probably take profit because I did have a short-term target around 95, 96, but I did not close any shares. I'm getting really tired of holding Chewy when it's not holding any of its breakouts. It keeps breaking out, pulling back, breaking out, pulling back, and it's just miserable to trade that short term. So if it does pull back, I'd say below like 94, I'll probably take profit on this. Our entry is around 88, so this is a pretty good short-term gain for us. Coinbase, we're still holding on to. It's finally starting to see some momentum. You had earnings that didn't really react bullishly. They were really good earnings, but it didn't really react. It pulled up and then it nuked. So we have a nice little gap that we could fill above us. We filled the lower gap. So watch that 279. Hold above that. Probably get to like 300. All right. Finally, the big tech companies. Big tech is looking really good. Microsoft coming into our final target. You're basically there already around 293. So what I'm going to do is we're going to say that final target is hit. We're going to go ahead and delete that. We're going to look for our new targets. So this little short-term impulse here. So now we're looking for 297 to 299. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Really have to hold above 289. All right, Apple still looking very interesting. We need to get above this little triangle here, break above 150, then we're looking for 153 to 155. Facebook still not really doing anything, but this is still pretty bullish because we have that big gap above us. The big tech companies love filling their gaps, so as long as it consolidates here, I think it's going to break out into that 373. Netflix getting a little scary down here, but you are holding support. This is like a quadruple bottom at this point. You have the bounce off the 200, you have the bounce off the pivot. You are gaining momentum. Look at the short-term momentum on the Momo. So this last little pullback here was very weak. So this could easily pop above the OTS trail and then start to push above like 525 into 540. Amazon getting a little weak down here. The Momo is flashing a bottom. The last time it flashed a bottom, it gave you a massive move all the way up to, what is that, like 37.60, a 20% move the last time it flashed a bottom. So if it flashes the bottom here, which it is doing, and starts to pop back above this pivot, back above like 33.90, we could see a massive move back into the pivot around 34.70, hold above that, then we're talking about a gap fill into 3600. If it loses the 200 EMA, then we're looking for around 31. Tesla tried multiple times to break out last week, but it just couldn't hold its breakout. Nice breakout on Thursday, nasty pullback on Friday. If it can hold above 711, I'm still bullish into 737. Break above 737, which is also a gap, then it's looking very bullish to start reclaiming like 800 to 850. Below 711, look for 689. All right, guys, that is the summary markets. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you guys liked the video, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. We will be streaming tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, so make sure you guys stop by for that stream. If you guys are in Discord, I'll see you guys at 9:30 in the morning for our live trading session. All right, guys, you guys have a good one. Peace out.